Look, before we get started, I want you to know David and I go back a long way. We talk often, and we have over the years, and he's been very encouraging about the Banking with Life podcast. However, he's always had one critique. James, it's too long. So I want you to know when he came in and sat down, we recorded some of the longest episodes ever, and it gave me great joy. Thanks for listening. In this episode, my friend David and I sit down and have a great conversation about his experience with the Infinite Banking Concept. David is president of the Infinite Banking Concepts, LLC. He's one of 3 directors of the Nelson Nash Institute. And of course, he's Nelson Nash's son-in-law. I had a great time. I'm sure that you'll enjoy listening. Thank you. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery. And listen, I always say, because it's true, that I'm pleased when people come into the studio, and I'm always excited. But listen, today, this young man flies in from Birmingham, Alabama. Now, we've known each other a long time. He's a dear friend. David Stearns is with us today. And we're going to shoot a couple of episodes. And, thank you, David, for taking your time to fly out here and spend some time with us. How in the world are you?
James, I know you've been asking me for a while to come out here.
I'm like, David, come on.
And I come up with a lot of excuses, but I'm really glad I made it. Okay. I was sharing with you today in the car coming back from the airport that I don't get out much. I get everything I need. Everything I need is within about 50 feet of my office at home. So it's good to get out. And I love Texas. Alvaredo's a great place, and you are a very good friend.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate everything you do. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your consistent, honest approach with IBC. I really do.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate you, your friendship. I love your wife, Kimmy. I wish you would have came. And thank you for saying that. And I have been asking you to come out, but he's like traveling all around the world and all of those. So he squeezed me in between trips.
Yeah.
And so, look, I kind of, I don't know, how, I know that, if I go back, I know that you were like on our second or third episode, I think. Nelson was 1 or 2, and then you're 3, or he was 1, you're 2, and then 3. But you've been here before,
right?
But it's been a while,
right?
And lots of things have happened. But really, what I would like to do is just to really go back. You and Kimmy in the Army, and Kim is Nelson's daughter. So David, of course, is Nelson's son-in-law, and of course, he's on the board at NNI. I mean, he runs the Infinite Banking Concepts and becoming your own banker. If you order those products, he ships them out. And plus he's retired military, Army of 1. And, I'll put the bio in the link because I can't do it justice. But he's all around great guy. And I really mean that. But I'd like to kind of go back because, over the years, going to think tanks, he's spoken an awful lot of them. And are your talks, I know I'm asking you to start way back, and then here I'm interjecting this. Are your talks available on the internet that you've given at the think tank?
The think tanks?
Yeah.
No, they're only available for our membership, our IBC practitioners.
Okay. So I don't want to throw a teaser out there, but maybe you can come back and we can talk about, the Tale of Two Fathers and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Tale of Two Dads.
Tale of Two Dads.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about that one because that's... we'll get back to the starting point here about me and IBC and with Nelson and whatever, but let me just predicate this conversation by saying that my approach to IBC is not from an illustrative position, it's from a historical position. Okay? I like to be the person who says, not only is this good, but I have a track record of showing why it's good. And I can show you the mistakes we've made, okay?
Yeah.
But it's, I'm not an insurance guy. I'm not licensed. I'm not contracted with any carriers.
Do you want to get licensed?
I would love to get licensed. I'd love to get contracted.
Whatever.
But no. But Nelson and I agreed, that I would focus on the business side. And what I really try to focus on is the consumer side of IBC. okay? Because, let's face it, if you're a life insurance agent, you're in sales. And you got to make a living, so you're pushing that thing. So I wanted to approach it from, okay, I'm a consumer of the product, and so how does the consumer, both the American and the Canadian consumer, approaching this? What are they hearing? How do they translate that, and what are they going to do with it? Okay, so I'm trying to do it myself, and so my wife and I are doing it, and we have been doing it. And we've kind of like, Nelson passed in 2019, and so we really haven't bought a lot of product.
You have an opportunity while you're in town.
Since Nelson passed, but we do have some things in underwriting now. But anyway, so my approach to IBC is as a consumer, and if we haven't done it, then I don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so at the think tank, this past think tank, the think tank is an annual IBC, Nelson Nash Institute conference meeting for IBC practitioners who are authorized agents, where we get together for a couple days and we share best practices. We provide support, moral support for a lot of these folks, because there's a lot of folks out there that need to be told that you're not the only person that's doing IBC, right. And it's you have to keep your head up and keep pushing forward. So, but anyway, the presentation I gave was called "A Tale of Two Dads," and again, it was from a personal perspective. I lost my father September of 2021, and he was 95 when he passed. And he retired when he was 61 years old. Wow. So, I guess he did things right, okay?
Right.
He was in the military for 22 years, then he was a school teacher for 15, and he retired, and so he lived comfortably for a long time as a retiree. And anyway, so he passed, and I was not the executor of his estate, but I ended up being the sibling who did everything. Okay, I don't know why, but I did everything.
Because you can.
Well, it took months, and I have 4 other siblings, and so my father had all this traditional financial instruments that he had, and I was trying to unravel all that with 5 beneficiaries. I contrasted that with what we did with Nelson passed in 2019, and it contrasted not only numerically what it looked like between my dad and Nelson, but how much more seamless and easy it was to provide that legacy from Nelson versus what my dad did.
So it's a lot different. Traditional plans, and then just being a designated beneficiary in a life insurance contract.
Oh yeah,
it's huge.
It's huge, and not only that, but some of these policies. I figured out how much death benefit there were actually going to be, and every single one of them, the check was bigger.
Yeah.
I guess they're rebating premium and things like that. I don't know, but it was just everything was just bigger. It was like, hey, what a surprise! That's better.
It only goes one way, right?
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah. So
well, that was the last think tank. The one previous to that, I believe, was virtual only because of the Wuhan flu. The one prior to that, or 1 or 2 prior to that.
2020 was the last live one we did. Before we did a virtual think tank in 2021.
Okay. So was it 2020 or 2019? It might have been 2018. Nelson might have been here. I don't know. When you put all of your
that was 2020.
2020? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was dang impressive. I'm sitting out in the audience. I'm looking around, the 200 or however many people were there, and I'm like, who else has the cojones to do that? And nobody.
Well, you talk about all the policy portfolios and whatnot, and all the policy loans, and all the cash surrender value, and all the interest owed, not all the policy loans. It's like, oh no. But
that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't want to take credit for that. I want to blame that on Nelson Nash.
You're going to blame him like can't defend himself here.
No, it was his fault, okay, because I'll go back to the beginning here. Trust me.
Right, it'll all come together.
But I think that Nelson used Kim and I as guinea pigs.
Perfect
for all this. And I'll give you an example. I have 4 children, and the 2 youngest are twin boys, and so each one of them were issued 2 policies. Nelson owned one, I owned one when they were born within like 30 days. And so we had they weren't identical twins, but they were obviously everything was the same with the policy structure. And so what we did was, and you have to help me with this one because I don't know since I'm not a software guy, but when Nelson was getting on and started giving away everything, it's like here's my toolbox. I don't need it anymore. Yeah, I'll take it. Here's your table. So yeah, I'll take it. Here's this. Yeah, I'll take it. Here's this policy. Yeah, I'll take it. No, but I mean, he'd tell anybody he was in the process of getting rid of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So long story short is there was 2 policies in each twin. I owned one. Nelson owned one, and he gave Kim the policies that he owned on the kids. And so we had a baseline, 4 identical policies from the same insurance company, issued the same time, same premium, same this, same that. We used one for policy loan activity, and the other one we never touched. Okay, well, and I don't know how we did it, but the ones that we used for policy loans, they're all a little bit stronger than the ones we never touched. And these are from a company that had quote unquote direct recognition.
Right.
So I don't know how that happened because we really didn't know what we were doing, but so I have all that baseline. We had all kinds of policies I showed at the 2020 think tank, and when Nelson passed, and Nelson used to say in the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, the grocery store was in there obviously, and a lot of people said, why is he talking about the grocery store? What's he talking about? What's he talking about? What's he talking about? Well, it's about owning a business. Okay, and not stealing from yourself, i.e. own an insurance policy, don't debilitate the growth of the policy, okay? So same thing, okay, so anyway, I had we had all these loans, we spent a lot of money, redoing a house, tons of loans, and Nelson would come over, and at first it was like, don't steal the peas, don't steal the peas, don't steal the peas, i.e. be an honest banker, don't take out a policy loan unless you have a plan for repayment.
Yep. Where can you go in the free world and get a loan without a loan repayment?
Yeah, I mean, come on, have a plan, don't just take the money out of the back door. Yeah. And so we were honest bankers. We were paying it back, but I don't take out a policy loan and then issue myself an amortization table and do a check every month. I dump $20,000 in now, boom, okay, $40,000 in later on, boom, whatever. It's not like, okay, this is going to premium, this is going to loan interest, this is going to loan repayment. It's just like $50,000, boom. And wherever it hits, okay? It's good. It's good. Because don't major in the minors, right? It's good. Right. So long story short, Nelson changed his story. Instead of saying don't steal the peas, he said, you have got to have a place, okay, for windfalls.
You do.
If you don't have a place for windfalls, you're wrong because you're going to blow the money. Nelson, what are you talking about? I mean, so what he's talking about is like, Kim owns several policies on Nelson, and if he's telling us in his own way he spoke.
Yep.
Okay, how Nelson, he kind of came from the back end. He said, "Listen, if you get a death benefit on me, you better put it somewhere where you're not gonna blow it, and it's gonna grow uninterrupted, compounding, whatever." And so anyway, he comes to my house. We drank coffee every morning, for a couple hours every day. He lived a mile from me, and he goes, "How much do you have in outstanding policy loans?" And it's like, oh no, here it comes. And I said $500,000. He said, good.
He didn't say that one enough?
He said, good. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. And that was all he said. And he didn't say, he wasn't, he didn't go off at the mouth with stuff like that. It's just, the real important stuff was very subtle communication, like good.
Yeah.
Because he wants you to figure out, well, why is that good? Well, it's good. It was good because, a $500,000 death benefit, the best place to put that, if you don't buy another policy and put it in premium, is to fill up that loan hole. Boom, 100%. Okay, it's the best place for it. And so, long story short is, that's what we did. But there was a lot more than that because the way it worked out. And so,
well, can I? And I want to say that the very first time I listened to Nelson, a long time ago, but he said then he said, well, I'm in the short rows, and he was 72, 73 years old.
Yeah,
I'm in the short rows. And then too, and I brought this up because this gentleman David has some very, just incredible, powerful talks, and he's talking about two different ones, but to tell the two dads is one and the other when you put up all of your portfolio. Yeah. But let me go back and say that, if you had an outstanding loan of $500,000, you went out and bought some goods and services with that money. It's not like you just borrowed money and went to blow it as a place to put a windfall that Nelson knew you had coming, right?
Right. So, if I was going to buy a boat, I wouldn't have taken that money and bought a boat. I would have put the money in the policy and then the policy loan to buy the boat.
Right.
Okay, so I want to keep that money in circulation.
You better hurry up, man. Boats are going up in price.
Well, I think they're starting to go down like RVs. I think they've crested. They're starting to drop a little bit.
You got to wait about. No. Okay, so go back to the beginning for us because
Okay, back to the beginning. You talk about, like, Nelson used to talk about serendipity a lot. He'd get on an airplane, fly somewhere. He wouldn't have a rental car set up. He wouldn't have a hotel room set up. He'd just end up running to somebody at the airport and say, "Hey, Nelson Nash, come and stay with me." It's like, okay. But anyway, no. So I was in the military. I was in the United States Army, and in 1978, I was a second lieutenant in the Army, and my first assignment was at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. I thought that was great because I thought I was going to Germany because everybody was going to Germany back in the early 70s, mid 70s still, because that was the quote unquote Cold War area that we had a whole bunch of Army guys over there. Anyway, I got assigned to the 25th ID Infantry Division in Hawaii, and which was fantastic. Went over there, got into the unit, and after I was there for a couple of months, they told me that I was sponsoring another lieutenant who was coming in, and the guy's name was Barry Nash, second lieutenant. I said, "Oh, great!" So they gave me his home address, and I wrote him a letter, and it was written. The home address was Rocky Ridge Road, Birmingham, Alabama. So I wrote a nice letter. "Hey, my name is Lieutenant Colonel David Stearns, and I'm going to sponsor you into the battalion. This is the unit. This is where you're coming. This is this is what we do. Da 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 da. And here's my address, and here's the unit phone numbers and stuff. This is obviously way before we could instantly communicate." And so you let me know when your travel arrangements are. Let me know how you want, if you want to live on post on the installation, or if you want to live off installation. I'll start looking for some places for you to live and whatever. And so so anyway, I picked him up to the airport. I got him settled in, and we became good friends. And then every year, I still think they do it. The 25th Infantry Division, one brigade goes to Korea for a big exercise called Team Spirit. They go in February, from Hawaii, 85 degrees to minus 20 in Korea. So that year was our year. So we all loaded up in February and went to Korea for a month into Team Spirit. And Barry kept saying, "Hey, Dave, my family's coming to Hawaii to visit my dad and mom and my sister." He goes, "You need to meet my sister. I think you'd like her." It's like, no. And he kept hounding me, no. And so we flew back to Hawaii, and anyway, his sister Kim asked her parents, Mary and Nelson Nash, if she could stay for an extra couple of weeks with Barry. And Nelson said, "Yeah, you got an open ticket. Go ahead and you can stay with him." And he lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. And so I never met Mary and Nelson Nash at that time. They left, and he kept hounding me. "Yeah, you need to meet my sister. You need to meet my sister." So finally, we all went out to lunch one day. And so long story short is we got engaged, and I'd never had met Nelson and Mary still. We were in Hawaii, and called them up and say, we're getting married. And this was May. I think I knew her for maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
So like maybe I think it was 6 weeks, and we decided to get married in August, and this is August of 1979. And the reason was because I wanted to live on the installation, and that's the greatest turnover was with people living on installation. So quarters would be available within a couple of weeks. So we got married on post. Mary and Nelson flew over to Hawaii for the wedding, and they brought Kim's grandparents with them. And so Kim's got a nice little place up on the North Shore. We went down to the airport. We picked him up, and I was pretty nervous because I never met Nelson Nash. Well, I knew that he was an insurance agent for a major New York insurance company, and that's all I knew about him. And we talked briefly before that, but that was it. And so we met up at the airport, shook hands, and he looked at me and says, he goes, we got something to talk about this afternoon, so let's find some time to talk. And it's like, yes, sir. Well, I didn't know. Obviously, he wanted to tell me, take care of his daughter, and that I was not a Southern guy at that time. I was a Yankee, and so I didn't understand all the rituals about courting and things like that. So I broke every single rule in the book, every rule in the book.
And Nelson did all full of grace.
So, well, what Nelson did was he called up my parents and talked to my parents, and it was more of an interview than a talk. And he asked them for references for me, for people who lived within the southeastern part of the United States. Not children or not people my age, but like adults who knew me growing up and knew who I was now. And Nelson drove around the country. Well, he went to Columbus, Georgia, and he went down to Montgomery, different places, and he actually interviewed to get references on me. So anyway,
when did you find this out?
Much later, like probably a year or two later. So he did all that before he came over. But anyway, so the talk we had, he said he pulled me aside and we're going to talk, boy. The talk we had was he opened up one of his little briefcases and pulled out some paperwork and put it down in front of me and said, "Sign here." It was an insurance policy. It was a whole life policy. It was not an IBC policy by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't remember anything about it. I was just happy to sign it because it was like a weight off my shoulders. I thought he was going to chastise me severely for not going through the proper procedures and having the wedding in Hawaii and make him fly back out there. But anyway, So I signed it. I bought this policy, and of course Kim was the beneficiary, and I was the insured. And it wasn't very big. It was something like, I don't know, $60 or $80 a month or something, a whole life policy.
That's legitimate. 1979.
Yeah. But we 1035 that policy. It was, like I said, it wasn't even close to being an IBC policy. It wasn't much to play with. So that's how I met Nelson. Then we spent a week together in Hawaii, and I got to know him a little bit better. And he was in the National Guard at that time. He was a CW4 in the National Guard, and so I was a second lieutenant. So he wore his uniform, and I wore my uniform. So everybody was happy. So,
I don't know what a CW4 is.
Chief Warrant Officer 4.
I got it.
He flew fixed wing in the Army National Guard, twin engine aircraft.
I guess it was in 2020, whenever you put your portfolio of policies up on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you say, every time we had a baby, every time there's a change in our life, Nelson made us buy more policies. It's almost like cringing. He's going to make you buy another policy.
It was painful.
And after I had never heard that. And after your talk, and this is at a think tank, right? I'm asking other people, did you hear him say that? Did you hear him? And I'm sure a lot of people heard it, but not the people I asked if they had heard it. I mean, that was so, it just made an impression upon me.
Well, when I say he made me, he didn't make us do it.
I understand.
But it was like, we loved, everybody loved each other. We loved him, he loved Nelson. We were all like, we had a good relationship, and I didn't want to disappoint him.
Right.
But, I'm in the military, and you don't make much money, in the military. We were really good with debt. We always had a mortgage if we lived off post, but still, got twins. Here we go. Here he comes with some more apps, man. Like, oh no, So yeah, it was painful. It really was. And of course, Nelson said, "Hey, listen, it only hurts, because you're growing. You got to have that pain, and once you get past the pain level, then you're ready for some more pain, right?" That's how we ended up with a whole bunch of policies. Of course, a lot of them, like I said earlier, he graciously gave them to my wife. Just like the rest of all his kids got policies, all three of them.
It just impressed me when I heard it. Of course, nobody wakes up, I want to go buy a life insurance policy. It's like, I've got children. Let me go buy a life insurance policy.
No, that's the best time to buy it.
Right.
The bad part is, I know you don't want to talk life insurance, but you can't get enough death benefit on a newborn.
Right.
Okay, I want to buy the biggest policy I can get. I want to pay the biggest premium I can pay.
Yeah, but you didn't know that back then.
No, but now it's a different story. Now we do the same thing with grandchildren. Yeah. And my kid's doing the same thing. It's like, oh no, they got another kid. It's like, okay, you got it. Okay, we got two policies. I own one. You get one.
It's like that.
Same thing. Oh no, we can't afford it, Dad. I said, yes, you can.
It's only got hurt for a little bit.
You need to feel some of that pain. So
yeah, it is tough. I mean, I can talk about life insurance. I just don't want to mention all the companies' names, but it's hard. I mean, because we hear that a lot. I hear it a lot. It's like, well, shouldn't I put this policy on my son or my daughter? They're younger, they're healthier, and it's like, no, you got to start on you. You got to start where you're at. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a proper way to expand across family and across generations, but
no, you got to start on yourself.
That's right.
I mean, if you're the breadwinner, man, you've got to load yourself up.
And that's another thing too in the infinite banking footprint per se. The death benefit is just overly diminished sometimes, in my opinion. I get it. We're solving for cash. We want a high cash value, but if you're if you have a family, especially if you have a young family member, mm-hmm. You need death benefit.
You need death benefit, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, life insurance, it really doesn't come any other way, so it's okay to, I'm not saying that you'll solve all your needs for death benefit, but, you shouldn't start out with pennies on a death benefit.
No, you need a big base too, mm-hmm. And also, if you want to buy a whole bunch of stuff on your kids, guess what? You better own a whole bunch of stuff on yourself.
Yeah. And
if you want to buy a whole bunch of stuff on your grandchildren, guess what? So the kids, their parents better be loaded up too.
And if you want to buy something on your parents, the first thing the underwriter's going to ask, well, how much do they already have, and why are you going to kill them? Yeah. It's like, I mean, so there's suitability in the life insurance industry, and then we all have a certain amount of we're all limited in insurability, and so there are requirements whenever you're buying life insurance on someone else. There must be an insurable interest, and there, they have to have a certain amount, like he's saying, as a parent, to buy policies on a grandchild. Oh, the underwriter's like, well, if something happens to the to the parents, what's going to happen to the grandchild? So, I mean, rightly so, for a grandchild to have coverage, a parent has to have coverage, and then the grandparent can have coverage. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Load them all up, man. That's the key. Yeah. It's not that hard.
So here you are. I mean, if you were in the Army in 1978. Here it is, 2022. And you said earlier, you got some things in underwriting. And I don't want to be too personal, but you're still buying life insurance is really where I'm going with that. Mm-hmm. Here all these years later. Mm-hmm. And early on, it was like, oh my gosh, here comes Nelson again. He's going to make us buy another policy.
No, I had my son a couple of months. My son just got out of the military and he moved to Birmingham, and I hold him down to our local agency to get him in the process to get his kids through underwriting, and plus he needs more on him since he's now out of the military. He had that SGLI death benefit, yep. Right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, we're still active. I'm behind where I need to be, because just I guess from a personal perspective, we're at the point where we don't owe anybody anything. I don't have any debt at all because we financed our own debt for years and years and years, paid it off, filled up the hole with the windfalls, and now it's just like I don't have the urge to create more capacity, I guess is what I'm trying to say. More capacity with more policies, but I need another substantial one on myself, and we got a couple of other grandchildren we got to load up too.
Well, man, make it happen, get it done.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I've been talking about it for a while. So, all
right, so look, y'all met and got married. I mean, Kim and Mary was really the only reason I've been going to Birmingham the last 18 years. But mm-hmm. So Nelson obviously accepted you as his son-in-law. And so bring us up to date. I mean, that's a long time ago. So you just traveled the world in the military, expanding the empire?
We traveled the world. We stayed in the Army probably too long. We were in Atlanta, Georgia in 1998. And I was assigned to 3rd Army there. And 3rd Army was Army Central Command, as part of CENTCOM, which was the big warfighting headquarters that procreated the war in Southwest Asia. Yeah. Okay. So I was part of the Army CENTCOM component in 1998. And I picked Atlanta because I figured, hey, listen, we'll retire in Atlanta. I'll do something. There's so many opportunities there. So, but I was gone all the time to Kuwait, Egypt, back and forth. I could never get any traction locally, because I was gone. And so a reserve component job, I was active duty, but a reserve component job opened up in Birmingham with the local reserve facility where I'd be one of the permanent party guys. And I said, well, we'll go there, and I'll retire in Birmingham instead of Atlanta. And this is 2000 now. And if I do a permanent change of station to Birmingham from Atlanta, I'll owe the Army another year to pay for that move. And so, of course, Nelson was elated that we're moving to Birmingham. Sure. Because he loved the grandchildren. He loved Kim and just really, elated. And so we found a house about 2 miles from where they live and moved there. And 2000 was when Nelson wrote BYOB, Becoming Your Own Banker. And he said, Dave, when are you getting out of the Army? I said, well, I just got here and I owe him a year. And so 9/11 comes across, boom. And so that was like a year later. We moved in August of 2020, and then September 2020, or not 2020, 2000, and 2001, 9/11. Yeah. So that basically stabilized me for another like 3 years. And he kept saying, when are you getting out? When are you getting out? He goes, I need help. Because back then, Nelson would do these seminars, his 10-hour seminar, and he'd talk about things like weed eaters and stuff like that, and grocery stores, and things that say, what's he talking about? But anyway, and then then somebody said, everybody cannot go to your seminar, because he only did them for about 20 to 30 people. So he took all his notes and all his stuff together, and he put it together, and he turned into this book that we all know about. And so he ordered, like, he said, he asked me, how many books do you think I should order for my first thing? And it was like 250 maybe. I mean, because everybody, it's like, anyway, so a couple of insurance agents that he knew in the business read the book, and they said, "Man, I think this is pretty good. I think you get some traction here." So he started selling the books, selling them, and when somebody would call him up, and they'd order 10 books or whatever, and he'd have like an hour conversation with them when they call him up, because he was so appreciative. And so he was so overwhelmed with having conversations with people. And then when it got to the point where he was going to process these orders, he would type out like a thank you letter, address it to each person, and sign it, and then kind of pack the books up. It took him all day to do this, and he would place his seminars picked up. He's picking up, and so he said, I said, I need some help. You need to help me. I said, okay, fine, we'll help you out. And so I went from buying that first policy in 1979. And in 2004 is when I started working with Nelson full time. Okay, and we worked together closely. We did our first think tank in 2005. We had 8 people there at the local Courtyard Suites or something like that in Birmingham. 8 people, and Nelson was he started really picking up on his seminars, but and then we started ordering books. We were 10,000 at a time.
Ooh, 250.
It was like five pallets of books would come in, and so anyway, I mean, BYOB is still sells like crazy, and I was a thorn in Nelson's side when it came to BYOB, because I was one of the first people that said, Nelson, how accurate are these numbers? Because not because I didn't trust him, because he worked with actuaries and underwriters and whatever to make sure all his illustrations were done at a home office level. But I was talking about in-force illustration today versus one next year.
Yeah.
And so that's why I had the 5th edition. It's because we kept chasing our tail, updating the book. And finally the light came on. And Nelson, he kept saying, the numbers are not that important. The illustrations aren't that important. What's important is understanding the concept, understanding the problem, and understanding what a solution would look like. And and so I said, you're right. And so the very last thing we did was that 5th edition. It had that, if you go to equipment financing, it had that addendum.
Illustration number 6.
Illustration number 6. And he took the same policy, and what did he do?
Paid one more year.
He
premium.
funded it for one more year, and it performed.
That was in 2010. That addendum. Illustration number 6.
That was.
So you're running him through the ringers on the numbers, and the agents were too at the time, because I remember Nelson would say, "No, these agents giving him a hard time. You can't do that today. No, you can't do that today."
They give him a hard. They give me a hard time too. Still, they call up and they say, "Listen, what company did you run these illustrations through?"
Oh my gosh!
He goes, I try to duplicate this, and I can't even come close to the numbers. I said, "Well, what's the dividend scale today?"
Well, and I've talked about that too, that the dividend scale has come down since then, no question, but the CSO tables have changed 3 times. And then we had the 7702 change January 1 of 2022.
That's a different story completely there. Boom. Yeah, I'm talking about like before that. You're right.
Yeah.
And being a consumer, not a life insurance guy, I said, listen, show me something better. Okay, I don't care if this doesn't look as good as it used to look. If you use it correctly, it's going to perform better than anything else. Period. Okay, unless you're like doing something illegal, But
you mean like a member of government? I'm sorry.
But the 7702 thing, that's something totally different.
No, I'm just saying and I want to go back too because Nelson was giddy. I came around. I don't remember the first think tank I went to. It was the second or third one, I think. And I don't remember. I'm not sure where it was. It might have been in Little Rock, somewhere in northwest Arkansas, Rogers, up around there. I'm not sure. But he was giddy that you were going to like really, really stay and work with him back then. He was giddy.
Well, at first I thought I'd get licensed, okay, because Nelson was in production all the way to the very end, but he just did his family is all he did.
Right, he came out of production when he printed the book in 2000, right? Other than family, or was he still producing?
Family. I mean, he didn't take any clients.
Yeah,
but he'd do family, and he had existing some existing clients he worked with still.
Yeah,
but yeah, he stayed active with that, but he never mastered the computer. It was like all the apps were done with pencil. So.
That's all right. A lot of agents now still use paper apps. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the life insurance companies are just getting into the 21st century. So.
Yeah. So we spent a lot. Nelson. He's got his son. Barry. We talked about him, but he's a doctor, so he was totally vested in his career. He had another daughter besides Kim, and she was doing her thing. And he wanted to keep this thing going. Okay, he wanted to keep it in the family and keep it going, and because he just thought that there's so many problems out there. Okay, and this was a solution to a financial problem that was created by, we can go to that rabbit hole if you want to, but man, oh man, I mean, there's so many between the United States government qualified plans, between the Wall Street monetization and financialization of everything, and then the insurance companies were ashamed of their product set.
Yeah,
Ralph Nader shamed them, okay, and they came up with all these crummy products, whatever. He saw this. Nelson thought that permanent whole life product was the gold standard.
It is.
Okay,
it still is
gold standard.
Yeah.
And if the company was managing their portfolios correctly, and they weren't, like some companies didn't apparently, but
they'd hire the Wall Street MBA guys and come in there and demutualize and get paid their big bonuses and
gold standard, man. Boom. You can't. You talk about. I was at the think tank this year. I showed those 2 policies Nelson bought on himself. Okay, remember this?
I was there. I promise.
He was like the first one. He was 14.
Oh yeah.
The second one he was 16.
Yeah.
And his parents were the beneficiaries on policies that he bought on himself. I don't know where he came up with that, but.
Nelson told me at one time that when he was 13. When the first policy was purchased, and his daddy told him, like when he was 14, I guess, it's like, here, boy, this is yours. Mm-hmm. And his daddy made him pay for it.
It was like $10.45.
Yeah.
Premium or something like that.
And I asked Nelson one time, and I'm sure you have too, but it's like, Nelson, why life insurance? Why life insurance? And he said, James, the best advice he ever received was from life insurance agents over his lifetime. I'm like, wow.
Makes you feel good about that, huh?
Well, yeah, it kind of does, because I feel like as a life insurance agent that you have to have a broad knowledge, right? But it also has to be a deep knowledge on this, breadth here. So it's not like I'm just explaining how I feel, right? If you're a physician and it's, you got to have a broad knowledge of medicine, no question. Then you have a specialty. It's got to be very deep. I mean, the life insurance agent today, they have to have a broad and deep knowledge, and I think that was apparently true back then too.
Well, I think this is a guess on my part. I think that a lot of the agents knew a lot more about their product back then than they do now.
Yeah.
And that the companies were more in tune to training them properly, and it was a respected product, and they weren't ashamed of being life agents.
Right.
Okay. I mean, what we find now is that, from our perspective with the NNI, when we, agents will apply for our program, our training program, and we'll interview them, and some of them don't have a clue about their product sets and whatnot. Yeah.
Can they run an illustration?
No.
See.
So
those are the ones that are rejected, right? Those are not the ones that the NNI opens their arms and welcomes them with love. Come on in.
Well, I mean, we have to trust what they tell us.
Sure.
But some folks will say, who you contracted with, how experienced you are with their product set, who runs your illustrations, have you done any IBC type policies before?
Yeah.
Do you own any of yourself? What does your loan portfolio look like from your product set? I mean,
it's hey man, I'm creating a place. I'm coming. I got a windfall coming. I'm creating a place to put the money.
And say, well, I work with the home office on illustrations. It's like, so you don't know how to do it?
Yeah.
No. I said, well, I want to say me. It's Carlos Lauer, Robert Murphy, and I. We vote about bringing them on. It's like, well, if you don't understand what's going on with your product set, how are you going to support your clientele?
If you don't own one, what are you even talking about?
It's crazy. You're right. It's just nuts.
You kind of mentioned Ralph Nader, the consumer advocate. This is back in the 80s whenever, you got a Whole Life's Bad and all the A.L. Williams and all those guys, Vanetta Van Capsule, they're all shredding the life insurance companies. Oh, this is, terrible. And when in fact, the Wall Street was all in because they wanted the companies to demutualize and they wanted to get at the stock companies and all their cash reserves, kind of like what's going on today. And then, right. And then, the life insurance industry had no defense. It was a pitiful defense. And I think if you look at the companies that were, when they had the hearings, on when you come to the MEC, so Wall Street, I think, colluded with the term promoters and people like Ralph Nader, to attack the life insurance companies, say this is a terrible product, you can't figure out what the rate of return is, or you could do this. Well, in fact, and then it really zeroed in on single premium life insurance at the time, and then we got the MEC rules, modified endowment contract, that they changed tax treatment.
87,
yeah. So, I mean, the bonds couldn't compete with the life insurance company. They couldn't compete with whole life insurance, my opinion. Right. And then you look at all those guys that showed up to defend the life insurance industry, right, in front of Congress and the Senate hearings. And you look at how many of those companies demutualized right after they came out with the qualified plans, the Keogh plan, in the late 80s. And you can't say that all of that happened in a vacuum.
It was collusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So even the presidents, CEOs of those life insurance companies, when they demutualize and then they walk away with all these kinds of stock options and bonuses, and who loses in that? The consumer. Because we're still, you still have that kind of mindset lingering. Really, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but 40 and up in age, you kind of got life insurance kind of has a bad connotation to it.
Oh, yeah. And Nelson would say, you mentioned the word life insurance, and your mind was shut like a steel door. Kaboom.
Yeah.
And, so
and they just don't know,
I mean, I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know how good it was. And Nelson, I told you, he worked for a New York-based major mutual insurance company, and they demutualized in 91, I believe. 91. And he was a top of the table guy every year. And he used to go to these conferences, and he'd say, "You guys are you're killing yourselves," and they'd shout him down and say, "You know what you're talking about." And so he moved his contract to a different company after that.
Yeah. And so, we had conversation all the way to the airport, from the airport. But generally, before we turn the mics on, all I say is I try to avoid mentioning life insurance companies' names, anything that you don't want to say, or. But I'm going to throw it out there. That was AXA. That was Equitable Life Insurance Society that demutualized. The French company AXA bought them. Right. And a couple of years ago, AXA spun them off.
Right.
And I brought it up to a couple of insurance CEOs. I'm like, what a great story it would be if Equitable Life Insurance Society would remutualize. I don't even know how that would happen.
I don't know.
But that would be a great story.
I still own Equitable. I have.
You speak French? I'm kidding.
I think Kim owns. I think I have two policies with them, and Kim's got a couple still.
Yeah, there's
still a permanent whole life product.
That's right.
With nice dividends still, believe it or not.
I wouldn't get rid of it. I'd buy it from you if you want to sell it.
No,
maybe.
I don't believe in that.
I don't either.
I don't believe in stuff like that. I got it. I'm keeping it.
That's the way it should be. It does no one, the insured or the owner of a policy, especially insured, it's not good for them to sell a life insurance policy.
It's nuts.
The life insurance company, that's a question on every application. Have you sold a life insurance policy? Do you plan on selling this life insurance policy? Because they look at it as selling your mortality. And if you're honest on the application, you'll never get another policy from a big reputable company.
Never do that.
All right, so, and I don't mean to go back and forth, but...
you want to get personal still?
Huh?
You want to get personal?
If you want to, sure. I'm game. My ninja's kinetic though. If it gets too, I'm kidding.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What was your transition question?
I was just going to kind of go back to the Nelson getting beat up on the illustrations and the numbers, and you being part of that. No, holding him to task, right?
Well, it came from me because it came from my Army background. Okay, I was an Army aviation guy, helicopter pilot, and I believed in standardization. Mm-hmm. You got to have a standard. You train to a standard, okay? And you have to establish a standard. And so was IBC standardized? In the insurance terminology for that, I think it's compliance.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't know if you want to get into that or not, but Nelson.
I'm fine with that.
Nelson would turn beet red when I would say, we need to take this book and we need to get it through compliance.
Oh.
So it's standardized. That way, all these big insurance companies out of New York and Massachusetts
would love
it.
Yeah. So David and I went a little long, so we're going to make this into two parts. Thank you for listening to part one. We'll continue in part two where we left off. Thanks again.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.